True Stories About Whales by Libby Williams. True Story About Whales. Table of Contents. Introduction. Chapter 1 Humphrey the Humpback Whale. Chapter 2 Keiko the Orca Whale. Conclusion. Introduction. Whales are some of the largest and smartest animals on Earth. They live in the deep ocean waters, far away from the most humans. People don't often see whales unless they study them or take a whale watching trip, but sometimes a whale will swim close to where humans live. Then some pretty amazing things can happen. In this book, you will read two true stories about what can happen when people and whales meet. Chapter 1 Humphrey the Humpback Whale. Humpback whales are very large creatures of the sea. They grow to be up to 50 feet long, which is longer than a school bus. One whale weighs from 25 to 40 tons, which is as much as 8 elephants. In the summer, humpback whales live in the cold northern waters. When winter comes, they travel south to warmer waters. The whales travel a great distance during their migration. Scientists don't understand how they travel such a long way without maps or directions. Sometimes the whales get lost as they travel. If they swim too close to the coastline, they can become confused. Then they swim away from the ocean into rivers and bays. In 1985, a whale in the Pacific Ocean did just that. He did it not just once, but twice. He was humpback whale people named Humphrey. Humphrey was swimming from the cold water near Alaska down to the south near Mexico. As he passed by California, he made a wrong turn. Instead of swimming straight down the coast, Humphrey turned into San Francisco Bay. He swam around the bay and couldn't find his way out. Then he swam into a river that led from the bay, but that only took him farther from the sea. Humphrey couldn't find his way back to the Pacific Ocean. He was swimming upstream in a river away from the sea. The river had shallow water that was not salty. Humphrey was a big whale that needed plenty of deep salty ocean water to swim in. He had a hard time swimming and breathing in the river water. It was not a safe place for him. People in San Francisco were surprised to see a whale swimming up the river because whales usually stay out in the deep ocean. Many people had never seen such an unusual sight. Certainly, no whale had ever appeared in the river 40 miles from the sea. Marine scientists knew that the river was an unsafe place for a whale. They wanted to help Humphrey return to the ocean, so they came up with a plan. Humpbacks are famous for the songs they sing. The scientists wanted to use whale songs to help Humphrey find his own way back to the ocean. To help him, they played a recording of a humpback whale song. They played it on a boat that was sailing down the river towards the sea. People followed Humphrey in other boats, making loud, unpleasant noise. The plan worked. Humphrey swam away from the unfriendly noise and towards the whale song. Eventually, the boats led him out into the ocean and he swam away. Everyone was happy to see him back in the sea. But Humphrey came back to the San Francisco Bay 5 years later. In 1990, he got stuck in a shallow, muddy part of the bay. The Coast Guard used a boat to pull him into the deeper water. Then they used the humpback whale songs to guide him back to the ocean. Humphrey has been spotted near San Francisco Bay only once since then, but he didn't swim into the bay. He seems to have learned his lesson. Whales belong in the deep sea. Chapter 2 Keiko the Orca Whale. Some animals are kept at zoos or aquariums so that people can see them. People visit to watch and learn about animals they might never see in the wild. Sometimes it is not very good for animals to live in a zoo. Then the right thing to do is to set the animals free. This can be hard to do, but it can save the animal. This is what happened to one famous orca whale named Keiko. Keiko was born in the ocean near Iceland in 1979. When he was very young, he was caught in a fishing net. Then he was taken to an aquarium in Canada. There he was trained to do tricks in a show. Later, Keiko was sold to a park in Mexico. There he lived in a very small town with other animals. He performed in many shows every day. Keiko was good at performing tricks. In fact, he was so good that he was in a movie. Many people who saw the movie liked Keiko in the part he played. Then people found out that Keiko was living in a town that was too small for him. The water in the town was too warm. Keiko wasn't able to swim around enough and he was getting sick. This made people sad and angry. They wanted to help this special whale get better. Many people wanted to free Keiko. They thought he should be returned to his home in the sea near Iceland. But Keiko had been living in captivity, not in the wild, for almost 20 years. It wouldn't be very hard for him to live in the wild. He didn't know how to catch his own food. He didn't know how to live with other orca whales, and he was still very sick. So in 1996, Keiko was moved to a big tank in Oregon to get better. Many doctors and scientists were there to take care of him. They made sure he ate enough, got exercise, and learned how to take care of himself. Keiko needed to learn how to do things that whales in the wild know how to do. He had to learn how to hold his breath for a longer time underwater. He also had to learn how to catch and eat live fish. The doctors and scientists helped Keiko to learn all of these things. In 1998, Keiko was moved back to his home and in the cold ocean water near Iceland. At first, he was put in a huge pen in the ocean. There, the doctors and scientists could watch him and help him. Once they saw that Keiko could live on his own, they opened the pen and set him free. He took care of himself and even made friends with the wild whales. He swam around the oceans, but still sometimes came back to visit the scientists. Keiko spent the rest of his life living free in the sea. He died in 2003. Conclusion. Whales are huge, smart, wild animals, but sometimes whales need people to help them live free in peace. Whether it's in San Francisco Bay or in an aquarium, people can help whales. These true stories about Humphrey and Keiko prove that.